This is Let's Talk Chattanooga Real Estate, the podcast where we cover home buying, home selling, home improvement tips and ideas, market trends and developments, and investing in real estate. If you own real estate in the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, or want to own real estate here, then you're in the right place. Let's Talk Chattanooga Real Estate is hosted by Blake Watson, a real estate agent and investor in Tennessee and Georgia.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Chattanooga Real Estate. I'm your host, Blake Watson. I'm a realtor with Epique Realty, and I am licensed in Tennessee and Georgia. And today we're diving into a topic that's crucial for homeowners and prospective buyers alike, and that is property taxes. Specifically, we'll cover how property taxes are assessed and calculated in Hamilton County, Tennessee, and in the North Georgia counties of Walker, Catoosa, Whitfield, and Dade Counties. All of these counties in Georgia as well. And the reason for this is because there have been recent assessments in Georgia, really in all of the Georgia counties, that have just been mailed out to property owners. They have been mailed out with new assessments, and a lot of people have been calling me and asking me about the new valuation of their home being much higher than what it was even just a year ago. And we'll talk about that. Okay, so let's start with a basic understanding of property taxes. Now, property taxes are a primary source of revenue for local governments and are used to fund public services like schools, roads, and emergency services. All of those things are included that are going to be provided by our government to us. The amount you pay in property taxes is determined by three main factors: the assessed value of your property, the assessment ratio, and the millage rate. First, let's talk about Hamilton County in Tennessee, and this is similar in most of the counties in Tennessee. Here in Hamilton County, the property appraisal process is handled by the Hamilton County Assessor of Property. The assessor will appraise properties to determine the property's market value. And considering factors like the size, the location, the improvements, anything that's built on the property, so it's not just the actual land. The land is part of that, and the location of the land is part of that, and the usability of the land is part of that, but also the improvements are critical. Of course, if there's a building on it, if it's your house, which is mostly what we're talking about here, but it could be commercial property or it could be farmland, whatever it may be. And the market value is what the assessor of property is trying to appraise and determine. This appraisal happens every 4 years in Hamilton County to ensure that values are current with market conditions. Now, this is important. I just said every 4 years. The last assessment in Hamilton County was in 2021. So that was the last time properties in Hamilton County were valued and appraised for tax purposes. That means in 2025, so from 2021 to 2025, that's 4 years, but 4 very big years for appreciation of property values in Hamilton County. So I would expect next year that we're going to have to revisit this when Hamilton County reappraises properties and comes up with new assessments. So we'll have to come back to this subject next year if you live in Hamilton County. Now, in Tennessee, the assessment ratio varies depending on the type of property. Residential properties are assessed at 25% of their market value, and commercial and industrial properties are assessed at 40%. So you see right off the bat, commercial and industrial properties actually pay a higher percentage of the value of their property. And then personal property is assessed at 30%. Here's how that plays out. If you own a home with a market value of $200,000, its assessed value would be $50,000. That's 25% of the market value of $200,000. Now, the tax rate, which is set by the Hamilton County Commission, is then applied to this assessed value. For example, if the tax rate is $2.50 per $100 of assessed value, then your property tax would be $1,250 annually. Now, that's for the county property taxes. The city of Chattanooga, city of East Ridge, all the cities also have a similar process and have a separate tax bill that comes to you. So if you live in the city, you're going to have a tax bill from the county as well as a tax bill from the city. Most people are well aware of that and know that living in unincorporated Hamilton County outside of a city is one way to reduce your overall property tax burden because you are not paying for city services if you're outside of the city. Now let's move on. In Tennessee, once properties have been reappraised, I should say, for their assessment, there is a provision in Tennessee to roll back the millage rate when properties are reassessed. So this is known as the certified tax rate. I'm getting into the weeds a bit here, but I do want to give you an education so that you'll understand that there is a process that the Hamilton County Commission still will have to go through even after the new appraisals next year if taxes are actually going to be increased. Tennessee law requires that following a county-wide reappraisal, and again, that's going to happen in 2025, the tax rate must be adjusted to ensure that the reappraisal process is revenue neutral. The total revenue generated from property taxes must remain the same, excluding new construction, improvements, and deletions. So if there are changes to the property, you built a new house or you built an addition to the house, whatever that may be, yes, your reappraisal is going to change your tax bill a little bit. But understand there is a process to keep this countywide reappraisal process from changing the countywide tax base. Here's some key points about this certified tax rate in Tennessee. It must be revenue neutral. The certified tax rate is designed to offset the increase in total assessed value due to the reappraisal, now ensuring that local governments do not receive a windfall of increased revenue simply because property values have risen. So there you go. There's some protection given to all of us by the state of Tennessee. Now, local government can still act and change property taxes. If a local governing body, such as a county commission or city council, so you see you got a Chattanooga City Council, you've got the Hamilton County Commission, they can still act and set a tax rate that is higher than the certified tax rate. But if they do so, they must hold a public hearing and notify the public, allowing for transparency and taxpayer input. Any proposed tax rate increase above the certified tax rate must be clearly communicated to the public, with opportunities for property owners to voice their opinions during public hearings. See there, we do have a voice. This rollback mechanism helps maintain fairness, and it prevents sudden tax increases for property owners due to rising property values after a reappraisal. There you go. So if additional revenue is needed, a local government like Hamilton County Commission must engage with the public and justify the reasons for exceeding the certified tax rate. How about that? Thank you, Tennessee, for giving us those protections and helping make sure there's transparency if there is any property tax increase. All right, let's head south of the border into Georgia, where this reappraisal process has just been completed and new assessments have been mailed out to property owners really all across the state in every county. But we're going to focus on our North Georgia counties, Walker, Catoosa, Dade, and Whitfield specifically. Let's talk about Walker County, Georgia. The process here is quite similar, as I just described for Tennessee, but with some Georgia-specific nuances. The Walker County Tax Assessor's Office appraises the properties and determines their fair market value, and then Georgia uses an assessment ratio of 40% of the market value. So this means if your property is valued at $200,000, the assessed value would be $80,000. Now, the millage rate is set by local governing bodies like the county commission and the school board. This is a little different than Tennessee because the school board actually sets their own portion of our tax bill through the millage rate. So these millage rates, which are set by local governing bodies, can be cities, city of Rossville, city of Lafayette, Fort Oglethorpe, Ringgold, Dalton, whatever the city is, there's going to be their own millage rate as well for those city taxes, which again is a separate amount from what the county will assess. One unique aspect of Georgia's property tax system is the rollback millage rate. This is Georgia's version of that certified tax rate. So it's called the rollback millage rate, which ensures that total revenue from property taxes does not increase solely due to rising property values, after a county-wide reappraisal. So if property values do rise, which they have definitely been rising over the past several years, then the millage rate is adjusted downward to maintain revenue neutrality, which prevents sudden tax increases for homeowners. So these assessment notices that have just been mailed out, they clearly state at the top of the assessment, and I'm looking at one that I just received in the mail, it clearly states at the top, this is not a bill. Now, the way it's printed, it looks a lot like a tax bill, but it's not. It says this is not a bill. Okay, so there's more to it than that. It then further shows that here's the appraised value. It indicates what the appraised value was in the previous year. They do this every year. The appraised value of 2023 and now the appraised value for 2024 is shown there. Then there's also shown the current millage rates. Then it shows the state tax, the county tax, and the school tax. And I'm just looking at a couple of bills that I have in Georgia. So there's no state tax there in Georgia on the property. Then county taxes, there is a millage rate, and there is a school tax, which is also its own millage rate. On these assessment notices, there's also an estimated tax. Down in the bottom right corner, it says total estimated tax. Understand that that is an estimate based on last year's millage rate, not the current year millage rate. So you can breathe a sigh of relief that that is not actually a tax bill. That's not necessarily what it's going to be for your tax bill this year, because those millage rates have not been set. Each of those governing bodies still has time to prepare and set their millage rate. I know in Catoosa County this morning, the county commissioners are meeting 9 a.m., Tuesday morning, July 30th, and they are addressing the county budget and hopefully approving that and setting the millage rates for the next year. The bills don't actually go out in either state until October. Now, let's take a quick look at the appeal processes and special considerations in both Tennessee and Georgia in these counties. Property owners do have the right to appeal their property assessment if they believe the valuation is incorrect. Now, there is a formal process where you can present evidence to support your claim, which may result in adjustments to your assessed value. Whether or not you disagree with the estimated tax or the tax amount or the millage rate, that's a whole different story. But what you have the opportunity to appeal is the appraised value of your property. And you would need evidence to go and appeal that. And what sort of evidence are you looking for? Comparable sales of similar property like yours, recent sales of those properties that you can demonstrate that your property is actually worth a different amount than what's on the appraised value. If you can look at your annual assessment notice and look at your fair market value and you kind of nod your head and say, yeah, that sounds about right. That's about what my house is worth. Well, you probably don't have much of a case for appealing your property tax value appraisal at that point. If it's off, if every house in your neighborhood is selling for $300,000 and yours happens to be assessed and valued at $350,000 or $400,000, well, you might have a case and you need to go and demonstrate that with evidence to support your claim. And you can do that through the process that's actually described on this assessment notice. Right there in the middle of the notice, there's information on how you can appeal and what the appeals process involves. Additionally, don't forget that both states, both Tennessee and Georgia, offer homestead exemptions, and that can significantly reduce your tax burden in both Tennessee and in Georgia. You're going to want to make sure you have made your homestead exemption. You do that at the tax office. You can call me if you have questions about that, and I can help guide you through making sure you have your homestead exemption. And you can look on your assessment notice and see if there's a homestead exemption. You can look on your tax bill and see if there's a homestead exemption. You'll know if you just look at it and study it and look for the homestead exemption. If you don't have it, you need to have it if you're living in the house that you're being taxed on. And in both states, there are also specific exemptions for senior citizens, disabled homeowners, and veterans. So look into those exemptions as well. and you can talk to your property tax office to find out if you have an exemption that you may be still qualified to receive. So understanding property taxes can be a bit overwhelming. I get that, but it is crucial for making informed decisions about buying and owning property. And whether you're looking at property in Tennessee or Georgia, knowing how property taxes are calculated can help you budget more effectively, and it can even save you money through available exemptions and potentially appeals of your valuation. If you have any questions about property taxes, I'm certainly not a tax professional, so don't take everything that I've said here as absolute truth, but I can help navigate you through some of those property tax questions, and I appreciate it if you give me that opportunity. Just call or text or email me, whatever you need to do. And if you need help navigating the real estate market in general, well, please feel free to reach out. I'm here to help you make the best decision for your real estate needs. And I'm Blake Watson with Epique Realty.